Last time, on that time I married a goddess.
Wait! This isn't my story, it's his! I fear that we are getting steadily pulled further into this absurdity. Well, so far the story's been progressing nicely, just like my own adventures. I fell in love with the best girl right off the bat. Seriously, there's no one better than her, except for maybe Rem. Rem's a close second. Who's Rem? Well, like I was saying, just because you fall in love with someone doesn't mean that you instantly get into a relationship. You have to get to know the person, learn more about the fantasy world that you've been isekai'd into, take on a few quests, die a few times, learn what's really going on, and wow. The tale of Elden Ring is basically ReZero for the player, isn't it? Are we really going to allow ourselves to get this meta from now on? Well, after 4 episodes, we have to shake things up somehow.
Hi there, everyone. I heard that Kirito died recently, and you need someone new to help you discuss bodacious babes in another world.
No! I will not have any more overly horny riffraff derailing our discussions! Holy crap! You annihilated that guy! Unfortunately, as the protagonist of the story that birthed and named far too many isekai tropes, his plot armor is sufficient enough for him to quickly revive. We must be ever vigilant to make sure he doesn't creep back in. Then let us get back on track. Subaru is absolutely right. A good epic portal fantasy romance doesn't just jump to the steamy parts too quickly. You need to get to know the world, its people, the unfolding events that form the plot, and over time you build up the relationship between the two characters that you wish to sculpt into the perfect couple. The audience must be sold on their love, and that's precisely how it was between me and Ranni. Although, I must confess, there was a major distraction, and I kind of cheated on Ranni. Well, I cheated on the idea of being together by sleeping with Fia. The deathbed companion? You and her? I did not see this development coming. Lars, this really knocks you down a couple of pegs, a dozen pegs, in my estimation. I think you're even lower than Kirito now. I'll accept that. I most certainly deserve it. So, to explain, let me lay out my adventures with the most amazing side character in Elden Ring, Fia.
And you, I am sure, will bear a Baldakin's blessing. Do you think it vulgar, perhaps? Where I come from, it is a sacred act. Ah, my thanks, great champion.
Fia is easily one of the most interesting and controversial people I met during my adventures through the lands between. She was a deathbed companion who became blessed by the light and gold of grace, even though her beliefs and desires ran completely contrary to the golden order that ruled the Erdtree dynasty in the lands between. She was labeled as one of those who lived in death, meaning that her practices were for bringing nobles and great warriors back to life by spending time with them and absorbing living energy and force from others, which she could then bring into herself as a vessel and then gift to the dead nobleman or warrior that she was required to lie with, thus subverting the odd cycle of death and rebirth that was in the lands between. However, once she was turned out of her own homeland, Fia came to lands between with the express purpose of bringing back Ranni's older half-brother, Godwyn the Golden. He was one of the greatest among Queen Marika's many children. His strength and beauty were unsurpassed. He defied the dragons when they came to Lindell seeking to overthrow Queen Marika's dynasty and reclaim their ancient dominion over the lands between. But he was not only the one who withstood them, he also made friends and allies with the dragons. Being mighty and kind set him apart from the majority of his family, and he was the one most likely to become the next Elden Lord and cement the continuation of the Erdtree dynasty. This is why Ranni needed to destroy him, because more so than Miquella, Godwyn was the one who could unite and lead the lands between and snuff out any conflict before it got too far. She needed that chaos in order to build her own order and make her own destiny. It could have very well even been that if the Greater Will chose Ranni to be the goddess who would replace Queen Marika in the next age, that Godwyn, her older brother, would have become her consort and the Elden Lord. Killing him with a stolen fragment of the Rune of Death was essential in her grander plans, even if it did subject Godwyn to a cruel fate, for he must endure now as a blight upon the lands between, slowly corrupting the soil, the plants, and all life to become undead, even like himself, a corpse with no soul who could not pass on. Where Godwyn's arguably one of his best friends, the mighty dragon Fortisax, and even the powerful demigod and younger half-brother Miquella failed, Fia believed she could use the rites and practices of the deathbed companions to revive Godwyn and restore his soul. If he came back, she believed that he could usher in a new age, where just as the dragons had been accepted into the Golden Order and Erdtree dynasty, those who lived in death, like herself, could find acceptance and lead peaceful, happy lives. Not to mention that the return of this great lord could possibly bring peace and unity back to the lands between. However, Fia was largely hated and persecuted for her beliefs, and sought refuge and allies within the Round Table Hold. She offered comfort to those who needed it through hugs, and took a portion of their life force in return. However, each time I went for some much-needed comfort and advice in my quest for Ranni, let's just say that Fia's words got to me.
You are so very warm.
Well, one thing led to another, and I will admit, it was not my finest hour, and though I was still seeking out Ranni, I wanted to help Fia in her quest, and so I did, though her own machinations had drawn in the ire of D and his twin brother D, the Beholder of Death. As a side note, their parents were horrible with choosing names. She accumulated enough life force from some of the people who swore to be her champions, and she sent their ghosts to kill me at one point, fearing that I had allied myself with D to stop her from bringing back Godwyn. And honestly, since she knew I was serving Ranni, with everything she had learned from Rajia, it would make sense that she believed that killing her would serve Ranni's purpose as well. After defeating Fia's champions, I did not seek her death. Instead, I wanted another hug. I knew this might be the last time we had together since she found Godwin, and who knew what would happen next? And so we had one more, intimate moment.
You are an odd one. I am the guardian of those who live in death. They call me a foul and rotten witch. Yet you still wish to be held by me?
That escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
With my life force shared with her, Fia was able to initiate the ritual, but all was not well. She needed assistance with the undead forces within Godwin. I was magically able to enter the deathbed rite and transcend into a dream space that existed within Godwin the Golden. And there I found his old friend Fortisax, turned into a lich dragon while trying to hold back the ravages of unnatural death on a god in the surrounding world. Unfortunately, this battle had long since ended, transforming Fortisax. So, I had to put an end to the Lich Dragon. But when I returned, things had turned even worse, for D, the Beholder of Death, had come to avenge his brother, just normal D. He killed Fia, who had failed to awaken and restore Godwin. But there was something precious left behind, a new mending rune for the shattered Elden Ring. A rune formed of Fia's desire to save those who live in death, a rune forged to return death back to the world, and a rune forged of the bond she shared with me. It was like our own child, and there was a final request, to become Elden Lord and give peace to those who live in death. I have a question. Did you guys really do the deed, or was it just some spiritual mumbo-jumbo? Because of the weird way that the world without death works, most people in the lands between stopped being sexually intimate a long time ago, so fusing our souls together was the closest we ever got. Though that doesn't mean that everyone isn't into that kind of stuff back there. Ranni did give me a lot of turtleneck meat later on.
Woof.
You're still a dozen pegs low on the scumometer, Lars. With this distraction and subplot though out of the way, can we finally get on with the main story again?
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it!
Yes, but that will have to wait for the next episode. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, a YouTube channel for novice authors by novice authors. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and while this latest episode of That Time I Married a Goddess might be an embarrassing admission on my part, there is a writing lesson to be had here. When we want to write a romance for our stories, we tend to already have a ship in mind, or if you're doing it right, you are sculpting your intended couples, already making plans for how they will work out. But something I have learned while writing is that, well, sometimes we come across a potential pairing that we had never intended. And as we continue to develop these characters, we realize this incredible narrative and personal progression potential if we just got these two people together. The problem is that this almost always happens with characters we had already intended to get with someone else. And unless you want to make a load of people unhappy with a shoehorned polyamorous situation, it's best to just choose who is going to end up with whom beforehand. And before anyone gets angry with me saying that polyamory is absolutely not a viable option and that instead it should be utilized in situations like these, I will point out to you the Wheel of Time.
Because I won't let you.
Who do you think of when you're with me?
That display you forced me to put on has made everything we're trying to do much harder. Don't smile.
No, not that stupid show. I mean the books. Rand gets himself 3 love interests, 3 wives by the end. And Robert Jordan had to put in a ton of work to make these relationships viable and not simply feel forced or lecherous. Because at the end of the day, even most fantasy fans want monogamous couples. If you want to go the polyamorous route, however, in your stories, your workload to make those relationships work within the story increases exponentially, because you now not only have to have a relationship between the protagonist and the love interest, but now all the love interests need to have relationships between each other, and their relationships with the protagonist are also now covered or colored by all of the other relationships that the protagonist happens to be in and the ones that they happen to have with each other. It just makes things complicated. But coming back to the issue at hand, choosing who's going to end up with whom can be a heartbreaking decision for any author to make. You have to choose based on at least 2 major factors. 1, what is most important for the characters, and 2, what is most important for the story. You'll find that your story is often flexible enough for you to change up who ends up with whom, and who makes everything still flow smoothly to when you write the end. One couple shouldn't be derailing the whole story. Far more difficult, though, is when you're trying to figure out who will make the best pairings for your stories. If you don't want to resort to what Stephanie Myers did when she created a convenient girl to give Jacob a happy ending, and is it really a happy ending when you imprint on a half-vampire toddler who is the daughter of your crush and the greatest love rival of your life? Survey says nope. So answers will vary on what you're going to do as you write. I have already scrapped 1 OTP, 1 true pairing for 1 story because, well, I realized it was actually so much better for some different characters to get together and just have that relationship remain a friendship. For another story, it was clear that my original couple was endgame from the get-go, but I learned I could have a lot more fun with giving them stumbling blocks, and that I could have that lead up to the moment of when they actually get together in relationships, into a relationship, and that they learn from other relationships that they have along the way. And then for another book, I entertained the shipping potential between 2 characters to show how this relationship, despite all those tantalizing temptations that were there right before me, was most likely not going to work out in a positive way. So it all depends again on the story that you're writing and the characters you are working with. But please let me stress, don't freak out when you realize that the relationship potential between 2 characters is becoming something that you weren't expecting. It's just part of the process of writing as you discover these characters and the world that you are creating. Though remember the major factors. What is most important for your characters and what is most important for your story? Focusing on that, you can proceed with confidence. And if you have any regrets, well, that's what fanfiction's there for.
I was just writing some non-canon AT and AR ships, the odd one-shot here and there, and a bit of OOC, some OC drawings, of course, but mostly OTP squeeze and fan service.
What did you do this time?
Her heart pounding in her chest. Penny said to Banana Joe, let's never split. I got a bit carried away.
Well, that will do it for this video. If you're looking for more reviews, fresh content, awesome stories, analyses, advice, insights, and more, then please check out what we have here on our channel and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And we'll be back again with another installment of That Time I Married a Goddess. And until then, y'all, tschüss.